Hello, this is Richard Moore, North Mississippi Anti-Gang Stalking Association, YouTube, United States Anti-Gang Stalking Association. I'm going to speak briefly about a subject that I've uh, touched on. I'm going to say touched on. I really haven't taken the opportunity to really expound on this due to the nature of what I'm talking about. But in the ensuing weeks, I will be providing more information and more details about this subject. And what I'm talking about today is the deaths of two senior citizens in Okolona, Mississippi. I believe it was April 22nd is when Chickasaw County 911 received a call from Fred Stevens saying he needed an ambulance, and when they arrived, they found his wife, Tilda Stevens, according to them, beaten to death, and that he was hospitalized for several knife wounds to the chest and stomach. They later reported that this was self-inflicted. Subsequently, Fred Stevens was charged. 68-year-old Fred Stevens was charged with second-degree murder. Prior to this happening, I personally had a meeting with both of those individuals at their home in Okolona about a week and a half prior to this so-called murder and death of natural causes, I believe is how it was reported, where Fred Stevens died in the Chickasaw County jail. The facts and the things that are presented to the public, and the things that the authorities have presented are is their version, and I will subject to you a very narrow version, and I contest that there's a lot more to the story than was ever told. Prior to these deaths, like I said, I had a meeting at their home about a week and a half prior to this. It was concerning problems I was having out of an individual's property that adjoins the Stevens property. I was aware that they had had some past differences, suggestion of some criminal underhanded activity as it pertains to his neighbor, Eddie Roberts. This little area that they live in is has a very sinister cloud hanging over it, and has for some time. These people are not the only people that have died within rock throwing distance of that place, and they're all tied to the same people. People that are in law enforcement, judges, attorneys, etc. It's a deep, deep cesspool to wade into. So I mentioned to the Stevens family while I was there, and before I could even voice any of the reasons, the particulars of the visit, I listened as Tilda Stevens gave me a dossier, if you will, of what they had been experiencing at their home. I'm sitting there slack-jawed because it was almost verbatim of what I'd been experiencing. And you can't make stuff like this up. Fred had just been released from the VA hospital. He had obviously been going through some very traumatic things there at his place. After she told me the things that had happened to her and the stalking that took place by Eddie Roberts, from flying drones into their property, and even one of them crashed and they had to go over there and get it, to him dressing in a uniform of a someone with a telephone company and knocking on the door and forcing his way in the house and terrifying her. That's correct. So I won't go into all the things that she talked about, and I told her that I was trying to gain audience with the FBI regarding this, that it was corruption to the highest level, and it was very alarming. And I felt that, and I knew that they had a hand in it. I knew that that was the deal. She gave me and wrote down a piece of paper, and I still have it, her both of their phone numbers, and said, please, I beg you, please, when you talk to them, tell them to please come see us. We need to tell them about what's going on. I gave her my word that I would. I was on my drive back. It was raining and storming that night. I was just very, very troubled by the things that I'd heard. Not realizing at this point that what is going on there is part of a nationwide epidemic of organized criminal behavior, supported and controlled by many of those that are in a place of trust and authority, like law enforcement. The next day, I contacted the FBI with my concerns. I also contacted MBI with my concerns. I also contacted Sheriff Jim Myers with my concerns. I left messages. They knew what the content was about. No phone call was returned. It fell on deaf ears. I relentlessly, let me emphasize this, attempted to ring the warning bell that something very bad was going on. When I learned the evening of the death of Tilda Stevens and Fred Stevens being arrested with a so-called self-inflicted wounds, I immediately called the Sheriff's Department, was given his cell phone number, and placed several calls, left messages that I said, I tried to call you about this. Now it's happened. I think you need to talk to me. I was finally given a message by the dispatcher to quit calling the sheriff. Didn't want me calling down there anymore. Now, also reached out to the FBI again. And folks, let me tell you, to this day, I have yet to be interviewed about information that was given to me as it pertains to imminent threats to human beings. Regardless of what is being sold to the public, and regardless of what is being sold as how it looks like, I'm going to argue very strongly that it is anything but what has been told and released to the public. I would be dead wrong to continue to sit back without this being made public. I will continue to do this. If it were anyone else's family, could you imagine that this happening and being told and fed a story only to find out that someone else had information, but it may implicate people in law enforcement? You see, the Chief Investigator, Keith Roberts, knows exactly what's going on. Sheriff Jim Myers, he knows exactly what's going on. The coroner, Fowler, knows exactly what's going on. This is not the first, nor will it be the last. They demonstrate and complete an abject disregard for the rule of law as we as citizens see it. They see it different, my friends. Our Constitution and our civil liberties trump corrupt law enforcement. Let me repeat, our civil liberties and our Constitution trump corrupt law enforcement. So regardless of their opinions of the messenger, it's always kill the messenger, smear the messenger. We're going to keep exposing the truth. I found out 2 years after the fact from one of the one of their lead snitch stalkers. It comes from that same area, that same deal. This has been going on. There's plenty of dirty little secrets there, including Judge Posey's nephew. You know, you see, loose lips sink ships, don't they, Judge Judy? So got all these natural deaths and stuff going on around there. I think it's high time that people get the real story, what's really happening. What's really happening. The rule of law is not designed around a good old boy situation, or they're going to die anyway, or any of this stuff. It's criminal, and a criminal investigation into these people and these allegations must be made. And the investigation must be made. Now, find out 2 years after the fact. I was asked, what was my picture doing on Fred Stevens' telephone? I never repeated this to anyone. That during this interview with the Stevens family, that Fred Stevens just, it was just kind of a spontaneous moment. He picked up his phone and he said my name and took my picture, which I didn't mind. You see, God has his own way of how he works. Law enforcement asked Eddie Roberts what my picture was doing on Fred Stevens' phone. I find that strange as well, because at this point, I had never mentioned the name Eddie Roberts. Why did they go to him? You'd think they would come to me. So we know for a fact that they knew I was there. They already knew I was there. I called them before this happened. But now they've got this picture, and they're asking a person that really should be the person of interest. But a lot of people have got mud on their shoes. And so therefore, kill the messenger, kill the message. We're not going to kill the messenger, and we're not going to kill the message. The message is due process, and that's for everybody. That's for everybody. This is happening in Mississippi. Deaths across the state. We get one report in the news, but oftentimes, ladies and gentlemen, we do not get the real story. We do not get the real story. This is what we're trying to bring to the public's eye. There's always two sides, and the way something looks and appears and it sounds good and palatable does not mean it's the truth. And friends, it is the truth that we must demand from those in our government. Transparency in our government must be demanded, and it is our right as a citizen to question our government and to question those that are in places of trust and authority, like law enforcement. This was negligence on its face by ignoring, because by giving any credibility to what I had to say about this, and my testimony would have involved some people that are pillars of the community and really will go to any lengths to keep from getting any mud on their shoes. Well, I hate that. I hate that there's a class of people that are obviously better than an average American citizen. I can tell you, folks, those prison cells, they don't care. They do not care what your name is, or whose back you're slapping, or what fake church you belong to. They do not. I think it's high time that people in Mississippi and people across this nation stand up and demand transparency in our government, transparency with our law enforcement, and demand that they do their job, not as they see it, but by the law, and let due process take it, and not them take due process in their own hand and then settle the whole case and ignore the truth. That's wrong. Until next time, God bless you. North Mississippi and United States Anti-Gang Stalking Association, respectively, on Facebook and YouTube.